And hello, my fabulous sixth graders. This is your favorite teacher, Mr. Jacobson. And I'm excited to be with you. I'm coming to you somewhere in LA, and we have a lot to discuss today. And it's about Sumerian technology, and they've had some pretty amazing advances in technology. Nothing like the iPhone, but they did come up with the wheel and the plow, which made life much easier. Very similar to how the iPhone has made life very easy today. So that's what technology does. It's ways in which it makes life easier for the people who lived in that time. And the beautiful thing about technology is it's constantly changing and hopefully for the better. So today we're going to talk about Sumerian technology and Sumerian life. So let us begin. Excited to be with you today. So the first technology, and probably one of the most important, is the wheel. So the Sumerians used the wheel for two reasons. One, they used the wheel to attach to wagons and to other things which they need to carry heavy loads. Okay? And then second, they use the wheel for making clay pottery. So as you can see, this is also a wheel, which it's round. They have a way to make it spin. So when it spins, they can make their vase or their clay pot, and everything will be fine. So the wheel is a huge breakthrough in technology. It allowed people to be able to carry heavy loads and burdens. Without the wheel, it would be very difficult for civilizations to build and to travel. So the wheel, very important. Let's go to the next one. Here's the plow. So the plow is another important invention. Basically, the plow is an instrument that's pulled by oxen, and what it is the plow has kind of like a, well, it was first made of wood. So let's look here. So this is the actual plow, and you can see the part down here. It actually goes under the dirt, and then with your oxen or your cows or horses or whatever you had, um, they would pull, and then they would cause a line in the dirt to emerge as it's going. So originally the plow was made of wood, but eventually they're going to get smart and they're going to make it of copper and then of bronze and eventually of metal. And the harder the metal, the more harder the ground they can start farming. Now, Mesopotamia right now, the ground is not very hard, so they don't really need metal, a metal plow. So wood would be just fine in this respect. But the plow made life very easy because instead of spending all your day farming, you could easily just do most of the time, most of the work in the morning with your animals, and then spend the rest of the day watering and other things as they like to do, maybe a hobby or something. So it definitely increased the farm production. Another piece of technology is math. So the Sumerians developed a math system based on the number 60. So 60 is kind of like our 100. You know how in America, or at least in the West, Western civilization, we like to block things off at 100. So we like to block them off at 10, at 50, and at 100, right? And the 100 is kind of like this perfect number. It's complete. When there's 100, we have 100% means complete, right? Well, to the Sumerians, 60 was their 100. So when something got to 60, then in their mind, that was complete. And one of the reasons is because 60 is such a divisible number. There are a lot of numbers that divide or are divisible into 60, which makes it an easy number to work with in math. We also had to thank them for our 60-minute hour, our 60-second minute, and our 360-degree circle, as you can see here. So really cool how they kind of saw math. They didn't see it exactly as we did, but 60 made a lot of sense to them, and it still does today. So here's the Sumerian calendar. The Sumerians recorded the position of the planets and stars and developed a 12-month calendar based on the cycles of the moon. So this is actually a picture of a king, a Sumerian king here, and you can see he's bigger, showing that he's the head guy, the person in charge, and then here are his servants, probably scribes or priests of some kind, and they're smaller, showing that they're not as important. And then in the center here is this disc, and this is the disc of which the calendar, the Sumerian calendar, was written. So they wrote on a disc very similar to this, as we can see on the clay tablet. Now we already talked a little about ziggurats, so I'm going to make this quick. Ziggurats were pyramid-shaped temple towers. Every Sumerian city had one. Temple was at the very top. So the temple is this area right here. Probably took a long time. Maybe they asked people to ponder or think about them ascending up into the heavens to enter the temple. Not sure, but obviously it was very significant why the temple was at the top. Cylinder sills. So a cylinder sill, this is probably one of the most famous artworks from Sumerians. Stone cylinders made with designs are pretty much what it is. When rolled over clay, meaning the wet, the soft wet clay, uh, each sill would leave their imprint. And Sumerians used cylinder sills to sign clay documents. So if you're probably familiar, when somebody makes something official in our culture, usually they sign their signature there saying that they accept or they agree to the conditions or whatever, right? Well, if you don't have paper, then what's another alternative? Well, so see, the Sumerians, they didn't have paper. And if you've tried to sign your name in wet clay, it's a little on the hard side. So what they did instead is they had artisans make them cylinder sills. And so as you can see, there's like an imprint going on in here, and they would carry it around their necks. It would probably be about maybe 4 inches long, and they'd have a rope attached to it and be around their neck, because that was their identity. When a document had their imprint, that was as if they were the one doing it. So they kept it. They guarded the cylinder sill. Okay, each person's cylinder sill was unique. There wasn't any two the same. I don't want to say for sure, but it wasn't supposed to be that way. So this cylinder sill, they rolled it around across this wet clay like this, and this is what it created, as you can see here. So not really sure what it all created. This is obviously something personal to the person who had it made, but something important's happening. This is obviously the important person. This might be a child. This sounds like it might be a girl of some kind, maybe the wife of the ruler. I'm not sure. Here's some other examples. So as you can see, here are some cylinder sills. They're not very big, but you can see this one made this imprint, and this one made this one, this one, and this one is a beautiful one. Look at all this. Look at all this detail. I mean, this is absolutely amazing if you look at this detail. So this one made this beautiful design there, and as a note, on the cylinder sill, they had to draw the people and the characters, and even the Kanaya Form writing backwards, so that when they rolled it across the wet clay, it would come out forwards, if that makes sense. Okay, it's the same thing with the mirror. If you write in the mirror and then you throw it, it looks all backwards. But if you wrote it backwards and put it in the mirror, it look all forward. It looked complete. So another really cool caveat there. So this is what we call Kanaya form. So if you look here, there's all these wedges and shapes and all that. That's Kanaya form. It's the world's first writing system. Scribes use sharp tools called stylus. You probably heard the word stylus before, especially if you have like maybe a Nintendo DS or 3DS, and they have a stylus that comes with it that you use to hold in your hand and you touch the screen with. So the scribes use stylus, where they would imprint and make these designs. And what they did is called wedge-shaped symbols on clay, and that's what cuneiform means. It means wedge-shaped. It consists of hundreds of wedge-shaped marks cut into damp clay tablets with a sharpened reed or a stylus. So this is an example of a document that was made in Sumer, and you can see all the fine details. that they gave with that. Here's pictographs here. This is how it kind of started. The Sumerians didn't always have wedge shapes. They started writing this way, where they would have, like, this would be the one for morning, night, hot. Okay, and so they started with pictures, but eventually they got to what we call Kanaya Form. So it's really cool to kind of see how slowly the transition of writing went from pictures to actual, like, writing where symbols meant something. And here's a scribe, so people who could read and write. Not everyone could read and write in Sumerian. In fact, I'd probably say maybe only 10%, if not smaller, would be the population. So scribes were held in high regard and they were paid a lot. Not all Sumerians knew how to write, as I mentioned. Scribes were usually hired by government officials and the temple to keep records, and Sumerian students went to school to learn to read and write. However, not every kid could go to school because, again, you had to be in kind of high class or society. Here's the Epic of Gilgamesh. I'm going to let you go ahead and just read the intro to that. Gilgamesh is by far one of the oldest and probably one of the most popular epics in the history of the world. Another one could be the Odyssey, which happened much later after Gilgamesh. And here we have a picture of the Ur standard. So this is people in Sumer were divided into three social classes. Social classes meant these would be like the laborers or the slaves. These would be the merchants and maybe the artisans and other people selling things and making things. And this would be like the priest and the scribes would be at the very top. And this guy right here who's sitting down and looks taller than all the rest, he's the big honcho. So Sargon of Akkad. So the first king to conquer all of Sumer didn't even come from Sumer. He came just north of Sumer. His name was Sargon, and he came from a land called Akkad. And we call him Sargon the Akkadian. And he's also known as Sargon the Great. In 2340 BC, Sargon conquered all Mesopotamia, creating the world's first empire. Now, an empire is a group of many different lands under the one ruler. Sargon's empire lasted for about 200 years before falling to invaders. But this is by far the first empire for the history of the world. So Hammurabi was known best for his law code. He is a Babylonian king. Now the code that he created a set of laws. And he created this to sort of help people so they all had the same rights. So that the rich people couldn't get away with doing bad things, but the poor people had to obey by the rules. That he didn't believe in that. He believed that everybody had to live within the rules, and he even made the rules public, meaning he put it out in the public square so people could read what their rights were. So go ahead and read up on that if you will. And then here is the Hammurabi Code. So we actually have this today. This is what it looked like. It's called a stele. And it here we have the top here, and then down here, and you can't really see it, but if you look close enough, there's small writing all down from about here to here, which gives all the laws of the people's rights at that time. And so here's a little close-up of the top. So this is the picture of Hammurabi. He's wearing the popular hat. Let me go show you. This is Hammurabi here. You see his hat? And then here's the same hat. So this is definitely Hammurabi. And this is the god Shamash, who is the god of the sun and the god of judgment. And he is, in essence, handing something to Hammurabi, which is a scepter. And basically, this was Hammurabi's way to legitimize himself, saying, look, I have power from above, meaning I have godly power to make these rules and these laws. And look, I was given this scepter or this responsibility from our great god Shamash. And if you look here, can't you see like some of the small writing? These are the writings of people's laws. So that's pretty much it. Go ahead and write your one-page summary. I've really enjoyed having time with you, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.